flashing? Are we on? Is this thing on? So, welcome to part 2 of the countyfair.net World's Greatest Multigrain Pancake Extravaganza, with the world's greatest part being for the multigrain pancakes, not the extravaganza, because let's face it, we're stuck here in my kitchen. Part 1 was the making of the multigrain pancake mix, for which the link will be in the comments below, and you can of course check the blog and the recipe will be there. Part 2, we're going to do the actual batter and pancake icing. Now, I know you guys are tuning in for the pancake stuff and not so much my personal food philosophy and thoughts, because, you know, who has that kind of time? So I will say nothing more than this. My personal food philosophy and sort of the idea behind the countyfair.net is a whole foods, plant-based, I hate the word diet, eating system, but diet. By whole foods, I don't mean the store Whole Foods, which is very nice, but I mean whole foods as in as unprocessed a state as possible. There's a big difference between a McDonald's French fry and an actual potato, yet because this is a conversation about food for real people, I don't so much stress about the difference between a rolled oat and a steel cut oat, because life is too short and the nutritional difference is very small. So reasonable whole food, plant-based meaning less animal products, is better. And we're going to talk about that on the blog, because I know not everyone is totally on board with that. Over the past couple years, I've sort of been figuring out ways to make a whole foods plant-based diet palatable for the long term. Anybody can make a salad, but the trick is making food that people will like, including me, my lovely assistant, and my 2 rugrats. So this pancake recipe is an example. You know, this is obviously processed somewhat, but there's a huge difference between this that we made in the previous video, and I hope you did at home, versus a box of pancake mix from the store. Big difference. So that said, let's get to it. I'm going to make a half batch because my kids are at school right now. Again, the recipe details will be on the website and hopefully in the comments. So, I should add, so how do you do pancakes in a plant-based system? Because isn't the whole deal with pancakes that you have butter and eggs and the whole deal? We're not really doing that in this. What we're going to be doing instead is substituting flax seeds, ground flax seeds, and a little bit of water for the egg. It tastes just fine. It's a lot easier actually, because there's no raw egg stuff all over the counters that you then have to go clean up. Also, instead of butter that everyone uses, or even like the vegan butter, the Earth's Balance sort of veg butter stuff, that's still full of saturated fat. I don't want to go into too much detail on why that's not ideal, but instead in this recipe we're going to be using sunflower oil, which is largely a monounsaturated fat, and it's a high heat oil, so you don't have issues when you're baking it to the extent that you would with other things. So we'll talk about that on the blog. 3/4 cup of mix for the egg, and I said I wasn't going to go into a whole lot of nutritional theory and rigmarole, and then I did anyway. But this is a trick that I've learned. Instead of eggs, you can simply grind up about a tablespoon of flax seeds in my handy dandy flaxseed grinder. My father-in-law once asked me, what is the difference between a flaxseed grinder and a coffee grinder? And the difference is, I don't really like coffee. So this is a coffee grinder, which you can find anywhere. Plus it's kind of fun, to be honest with you. This is much more fun than cracking an egg. Ready? Voila. So the idea is the flaxseed plus a little bit of water acts as your egg replacer. Also, the flaxseed is a hugely good source of healthy kinds of fat, which is something that is difficult to get on a plant-based diet. So this is one way to compensate for that. So instead of adding water, I'm going to add a tiny dash of extra vegetable-based milk. So instead of cow milk, for this recipe, we're going to go with cashew milk. This is a brand that I like. That's not going to be able to focus, but this is incredibly low in sugar, very low in sodium, low in calories, yet it's very good for cooking. It winds up tasting fantastic. So we're going to go with, let's say, a little bit over 3/4 cup. About 3/4 for the actual recipe, plus a little bit to compensate for the flaxseed egg. So voila, instead of butter, we're going to go with a tablespoon of This is high heat sunflower oil, largely monounsaturated. Almost nothing is completely unsaturated. It's very hard to find. So don't get too bogged down in the details, but remember, monounsaturated is generally better for you. High heat is generally better because you reduce the number of free radicals that wind up showing up in your food. Eggs, milk, butter. We need a little bit of vanilla. Pardon me, lovely assistant. Now, if you guys measure your vanilla as carefully as I do, voila, that was a little bit too much. These will be extra good. Now, we're going to mix this up. I mean, this is really no more effort than what many of you guys already do at home for your kids. Pancakes are pancakes, but these are better. These are multigrain. We have reduced a lot of the sodium load that you'll get in commercial pancake mixes. I mean, you'll see this if you look at the blog, but this has something like a quarter of the sodium that you would get in a comparable serving of, say, Bisquick, or, I mean, most of those store-bought recipes are about the same as the store-bought mixes. So lower sodium, this is much higher in fiber, this is much higher in iron, which we all need some of, and this is frankly a lot easier and less of a pain to cook because there's not raw eggs all over my kitchen. Now, everybody hates making pancakes, especially on a school morning, because who wants to stand at the stove for 10 minutes flipping pancakes? I am no different. This is a nice way around that. This is a silpat. It's made in France by whatever company makes silpats. Instead of putting this in a pan and greasing it with butter or spraying it with olive oil, all you have to do is put a silpat down on a cookie sheet. This is about a 1/4 cup thing. I fill up about halfway for those of you who are sticklers at home, and I simply, I guess that's about 1/8 of a cup of pancake goo. And again, this is a half batch. This will make probably 9 pancakes in a half serving. The nutritional information is probably going to be on my site. It's also in the ebook that I'm releasing to those who subscribe to the RSS feed on the blog. And if you really want it and you haven't gotten it some other kind of way, just send me an email at thecountyfair@gmail.com and I will happily send you the details. So, you fill this thing up on the cookie sheet. It'll make about 9. Put it in the oven on 350 for, depending on the size, maybe 9 minutes. There is no flipping. There is no standing over the stove forever. I can instead make school lunches or make people brush their teeth or all those other things that we all have to do in the morning. So this is fire and forget. Goes in the oven. 9 minutes later, they come out. They don't stick to the silpat. It's really easy, and I'll pause the video now, and when those come out, I'll do a quick add-on of the removal. That's it. Enjoy the pancakes. Check out thecountyfair.net, and I look forward to any questions you guys might have. Thanks.
Okay, we're back.
Welcome back to part two of thecountyfair.net World's Greatest Multigrain Pancake Extravaganza. It's just, the oven just went off, so here are the pancakes. They've been in there for 9 minutes on 350. Remember I told you that these work great even without standing over the stove and flipping. As you can see, no oil, no spray, no anything, just pancake batter and one of these silpat things. And there are, I'm sure, any number of brands that make essentially the same thing. It's just like a silicone-based mat on which you cook. This works for, I mean, not that I would say cookies are super nutritious. This works for cookies. It works for all kinds of stuff. But I'm a guy and I am very busy, and so I don't really like to stand over the stove cooking when I can just put something in the oven and walk away and take care of life. Now, if you want to get all fancy and important and make it cute for the kids, I mean, that's not a great circle or anything, but you can add, you know, a couple of berries to it, make it artistic. Decorate it however you want, stack them up, whatever. This is a half of a batch of that multigrain mix, which made 5 batches in about 7 minutes. So this is pennies over the cost of Bisquick. It's maybe an extra minute of active cook time over what you would spend making Bisquick pancakes. They're much better. They have a greatly mitigated glycemic load because of the high fiber content. There's a very high iron content. These are healthier flours and grains than you would find in store-bought stuff. I hope you enjoy it. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks.